This is my eBay buyer's account, and what I've done is typed in the words computer scrap trimmed fingers into the search block, and let's see if we can pull up some fingers for sale. There's some there, $26 for 5 ounces of them. Here's some that I was looking at earlier, $800 for 6 pounds. Here's, let's see what else. Here's one here, a big one. 24 pounds. And they're accepting bids on this one here. Now this one up here, the one I'm interested in, is just a buy it now price, which means there's no bidding. You just pay that price, and that's shipping, and they send you the fingers. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go with this. Alright, the total was $818. So what I'm going to do is hit confirm and pay. And bang. Those are coming my way. Hello YouTube viewers. Welcome to my Mythbuster edition. Today what I'm going to do is I've got a package sitting over here behind me that contains 6 pounds of trimmed circuit card fingers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show how to extract the gold from those fingers, and then how to refine it into pure gold. The gold on these trimmed fingers is not pure gold. It's carat gold. And once we get those foils off those fingers, the foils must be refined before we have pure gold. I've found that those fingers are about 50% or 12K gold. So 50% is gold, the other 50% is base metals. There is a continuing myth out there about computer scrap. The myth is there's a 1/4 ounce of pure gold in every scrap PC, just waiting for those who can figure out how to get it out. Because of this myth, the folks who sell computer scrap online can charge and get anywhere from 4 to 10 times the value of what the scrap is actually worth in terms of the amount of gold that can be extracted from the scrap. What I intend to do today is prove that there's probably less than 1/10 of 1 gram in any given scrap PC computer. I don't know what it is. It's people's wanting to believe that there's gold in these scrap computers. There is, but there's so very little of it. And I intend to prove that to you today with this video. Oh, and one other thing. I do not intend to make a profit from refining this scrap. In fact, I intend to take a loss here. I paid nearly 4 times more in terms of the amount of gold that I can recover off of these trimmed fingers, so that I could have them to make this video. So, if you're watching this video to see how to make a profit from computer scrap, I do not intend to make a profit from the gold that I extract from these trimmed circuit card fingers. My goal here is to make a video showing how you can get the gold, and then to show exactly how much gold can be extracted from this type of scrap. Okay, to begin this process, what I'm going to do is open this box here, and we're going to weigh the material that we got in. Here's our circuit card fingers. Looks like some good material. They're trimmed nice and tight. Looks like a good batch here. Now I'm going to try to get a weight on it here. Okay, there were so many fingers there I had to weigh them in increments. I got these weights, which adds up to be 2707.5 grams total. 1 pound is 454 grams. So if you divide this, the total that we got, by 454, I get 5.96 pounds. Okay. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow the bubbler down here from my stock pot and my waste treatment bucket for this experiment. All right, I've got all the trimmed fingers in 2 beakers back there. Now what I'm going to do is add some muriatic acid, which is hydrochloric acid, 31.45%. I got hydrogen peroxide here from the dollar store. It's 946 ml, 3% hydrogen peroxide. And what I'll do is I'll just add half of this bottle to each beaker. Okay, what's going to happen in here is those solutions, the hydrochloric acid and the hydrogen peroxide, will dissolve the base metals underneath each of those gold foils and release the gold foils from the circuit card boards that they're on. The bubblers keeps the solution mixed up and stirring as the acids act on those base metals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this go until I get 100% every scrap of gold off of each one of those trimmed circuit card fingers, and then we'll recover it and refine it. Both of the beakers have been bubbling now undisturbed for 24 hours. I'm just going to get in here and stir it up a little bit. I see some foils coming loose there. So we're getting some foils to come loose with this solution and bubbling air through it. I'm just going to leave this set for another 24 hours and come back to it. Same with this one. Got some nice gold foils coming up off of those fingers now. So we'll just let this set and continue to percolate and then move from there. The experiment has been in operation now for about 48 hours. And I just want to go in here. I don't know, oh yeah, they're coming off nice now. The foils are coming off real good. I'm just going to let these bubble and until I get 100% of those foils off of those fingers. That one's looking good. Okay, these foils have been on bubbling now for 72 hours. And I'm really starting to see some of the foils come off of their fingers now. See a bunch of them accumulating down at the bottom there. So this is going real well. Coming off in this one, not quite as good. I think I'm going to add a little more hydrogen peroxide to this side, or to this beaker. The solution isn't quite as dark, and the foils aren't coming off quite as well as in the smaller beaker. Okay, I've got a fresh bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide here. I'm going to add about another 250 ml or so to this jar. And I see an instant color change there. See if we can get them foils off just as well as we can out of this smaller beaker here. It's about 1 p.m. on Monday, day 4 of the experiment here. And as you can see, I'm getting quite a few foils coming off these fingers. There's some that are still sticking pretty good, but they've let go for the most part. So what we're going to do now, we're going to strain these fingers out of these solutions and recapture the fingers that haven't released their foils, and we're going to get the foils into a filter, and then I'm going to continue with the process. What I have here is a 5-gallon bucket, regular old plastic kitchen strainer, a glass rod, a pretty thick one. I'm going to use that to prop my kitchen strainer up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour each of these solutions into this strainer here and try to strain out the large chunks of circuit card fingers that have not rendered their gold foils yet. Alright, I'm just going to take these beakers here, pour them right into the strainer there. I want the foils that have come off, I want them going through the strainer and into the bucket. And I want to capture the pieces of circuit card fingers in this strainer so I can return them to the beaker. There's all our gold foils down in the bottom of the beaker there. Okay, you can see here that there's plenty of gold foils left on these fingers. So I'm going to go ahead and put these back in the beaker and try to get the rest of this off of the boards that they're attached to so we can release the gold foils and then capture them all in a filter and refine them. Okay, here we go. I'm going to try to get these foils back in this beaker now.
rinse these gold foils off my hands, off the strainer down into the bucket here. Just using distilled water here. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the other beaker. Mat, I've got a bunch of gold foils that spilled. Try to wipe these up carefully with a filter paper so I can recover them. Now I'm going to get these fingers back into the beaker so that I can continue the process, getting these things off of the fingers. Now I'm just going to use distilled water to rinse the gold flakes down into the bucket here. I don't want any of those fingers going down into the bucket, but if one does, it's okay. I want those fingers to stay out so I can put them back in the beaker and finish extracting the rest of the gold foils from those pieces of fiberboard down there. Now what I'll do is filter the gold foils out of this bucket to a fresh bucket. This solution through the filters, capture the gold foils in these filters here. Okay, here's our gold foils that we've captured in these filters. I'm going to go ahead and just wad this up, transfer it by hand over into this beaker, and we'll save this for later. This is the dirty solution that I filtered out of the gold fingers there. I was going to try to reuse it, but decided not to. It's all going to be waste. It's about 2.5 gallons. All right, in this beaker I've got the foils that I just extracted. I'm going to set this aside for right now. And these two beakers are still the fingers. Each of them have lots of foils. I was going to reuse the solution that I took off of there, but instead I'm going to add fresh acids and fresh hydrogen peroxide here and continue on, see if we can get this stuff fully extracted. Now I'll add hydrogen peroxide to each one. these go ahead and bubble away. Okay, it is 6 a.m. on day 5 of this experiment, and I pretty much got just about, there's still a couple of pieces down there that's got some foils left on them. There's not a whole bunch. Today is Friday, about 5 p.m. These things have been on bubbling now for over 8 days. What I'm going to do is separate the pieces of fiberboard from the solution and the foils, and then I'm going to isolate the foils and do a refining on them. Okay, for this first operation, I'm going to take this beaker here, pour it through the strainer, strain out the stripped off pieces of fiberboard, and capture the gold foils in the bottom of this bucket. Now I'm going to rinse the acid peroxide solution off of the pieces of fiberboard here with some water. I'm using distilled water, but tap water would be just fine here. Okay, now I have a clean bucket. I'm going to go ahead and put these fingers in here, and we're going to go rinse these off with some hot tap water. Now I'll use some hot tap water to rinse all the gold foils off of the fiberboards. Now I'll set up another filter for the gold foils that I just rinsed out with tap water. Here's our gold foils. I siphoned off most of the water, and now what I'm going to do is filter it through these filters. Been through these fingers, each one by hand, and I've got 100% of the gold foils off of each of these. There's a few more that I picked out that didn't come out with the first rinse, and I'll go ahead and pour those through the filters. And I got to tell you, I don't ever want to see another batch of these things again. They're just too much of a pain in the butt. Take too long. There's not going to be very much gold here, and there's going to be a ton of waste that has to be treated. Okay, I'm going to pour the rest of these foils into the filter and get them in here. Okay, now I'm going to strain the acid peroxide solution through the same filter here and get those foils out of here. I've got all the gold foils in the filters here. Now what I'm going to do is wrap these filters up, put them in the beaker. Now I'm going to take this and repeat that entire procedure with that second beaker full of foils. This is my first bucket of waste. I'm going to add the rest of this to this bucket. It's about 2.5 gallons so far. That brings it up to at least 3 right there. So it's 3 gallons of waste that's going to have to be treated with this so far. Now I'll go through the same exact process with the second beaker. Rinse them down with a little distilled water. Now I'll put everything in a second bucket here and rinse this with some more tap water. I've set up a filter here, and I'm going to go ahead and pour our gold foils. Get it out of the tap water here. This is our gold foils. Pour that through the filter. Filter out the foils. Now I'll pour the acid peroxide solution that I drained through the strainer. It's got some foils in it. I'll pour this through the filter now. Alrighty, here is our foils from our second beaker. I'm going to gather this up and add it to the other filters in this beaker here. So now I've got all the foils in this beaker. Okay, now I'm going to add the waste from from that second beaker to my waste bucket here. Okay, I'd like to do a quick little review here with where I am. This is my 5-gallon bucket full of waste that's got to be treated. That's not going to be poured down the drain. What I'll do is add sodium hydroxide to precipitate all the metals to a pH of 9. I'll filter out those metals, treat the liquid, and then we can dispose of it when everything has been properly neutralized. Don't pour it down the drain. Nothing ever gets poured down the drain here. Here I've got the fingers. I was able to leave that in there long enough, to leave these fingers in there long enough to get about 100% all the foils off of them. And then in this beaker I've got all the gold foils in filters. And so now what we're going to do is go ahead and put some aqua regia in here, dissolve the gold, filter it out, and precipitate and see what kind of yield we get from these 6 pounds of trimmed circuit card fingers. I'm going to begin by adding some hydrochloric acid here. I'm going to fill it up to the 500 ml level in the beaker. Put the lid on. Put it on the heat. About medium heat. Now I'm going to add about 10 ml of concentrated nitric acid. I'm going to add a little bit more hydrochloric acid here. Bring it up to about the 750 ml level on the beaker. I actually took it up to the 1000 ml level. Now I'm going to give it a quick stir. Let that cook. I'm going to give it a quick stir here. Oh yeah, our filters are breaking up now. That's good. I can still see gold foils down in there. I'm going to add just a dash more nitric acid here. Maybe 1-2 ml at the most. Fairly certain that all the fingers have dissolved, but I'm going to go ahead and add just a touch more nitric here, just to make sure. Okay, the experiment has been on boiling now for about an hour. Temperature is 209. Go ahead and pull this off the heat now. Let it cool down. allowed this beaker here to cool for a couple of hours. It's down to 67 degrees. When I opened it up to look, I see a bunch of gold crystals floating around on top of the solution. So I'm going to have to put it back on the heat now and add some more nitric acid, see if I can get the rest of that gold to go back in the solution. I'm going to add a few more ml of nitric acid here. Cover it up, put it back on the heat. I'm going to add about another 100 ml of hydrochloric acid just to make sure I got enough hydrochloric in there. Been on cooking for about a half hour now. Temperature's at 199 according to this machine. I'm gonna pull it off the heat now and let it cool. I'm gonna reach in here and get a little bit on a piece of filter paper. Do a stannous chloride test. There you can see it's rich in gold. There's lots of gold in there. Okay, I don't have any more gold particles floating around on my solution. Got it cooled down to 78.5 degrees. Got a filter flask set up here. I'm going to go ahead and filter the solution now. Took me about 9 minutes to do that filter operation there, and the drops coming out of the bottom of the funnel are crystal clear now. So I've got all the stuff rinsed out of the cake up here in the filter funnel. The solution has been completely filtered now. What we're going to do is go ahead and transfer this into another beaker and precipitate the pure gold sodium metal. Now I'll add the sodium metabisulfite and we'll precipitate the pure gold out of this solution. Is starting to come out of solution now a little bit there, it looks like. I might have a little bit of excess nitric in there, so I'm going to add a little bit of sulfamic acid here. And I don't really get much of a reaction, so I'm just going to keep adding some sodium metabisulfite, get all that gold to drop. quick stannous test here to see if we got everything to drop. Make sure all the gold's out of solution now. And as you can see by that test, really don't have anything in solution now. After waiting a few minutes, I noticed that the piece of filter paper that I put the stannous on turned a little bit dark there. So I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit more SMB and see if I can get everything to come down. Did another stannous test after that last addition of SMB, and I got nothing in solution now. That's been sitting there for about 2 minutes. It's been 2 minutes since I did this test, so everything has dropped now. It's been allowed to settle now for about half an hour. I'm going to go ahead and fill this little tube full of water, and I'm going to siphon the waste into my stock pot. Now I'll filter out the gold. I'm going to rinse the gold while it's in the filter with a little bit of hydrochloric acid. Now we're going to transfer the filter and the gold into a melt dish here. I'm going to take it and put it over here on the table and melt it up into a button. Here's our little gold button. Gonna put it up here on the scale and see how much we got. 11.3. I'm surprised. I was only expecting about 1 gram per pound. We got 11.3 grams from the 6 pounds of trimmed circuit card fingers. Okay, YouTube viewers, that will conclude this video on the 6 pounds of trimmed circuit card fingers. I got 11.3 grams of pure gold button of 11.3 grams of 24K. I'll have that for sale on my eBay store My eBay username is Baffelous, Baffelous. It took me over a week to get those fingers all stripped off with the acid peroxide solution. It was a long process. It was messy. I didn't make any money on this. Of course, I wasn't trying to make a profit with this. My intent here was to make a video to show how to get the gold off, and then to show exactly how much gold can be extracted from these fingers. And what I found here is I got 11.3 grams. Divide that by 6 pounds, so I got 1.88 grams of pure gold per pound of trimmed fingers. I paid $118. Divide that by 6 pounds, that means I paid $136 per pound for those fingers. Well, if you take and multiply 1.8 grams with spot gold at $13.30, it equals less than $80. So I definitely didn't make any money with this. But again, my intent was not to try to make money. It was to show how to get these fingers stripped off, and then how to refine the gold into pure gold. And I think I did that. So now we have something. If you look at this video before you go out and plunk down your hard-earned money to buy some computer scrap, now you have something to reference so that you can determine how much return you're going to get on these trimmed fingers. Other computer scrap, other forms of computer scrap yields even less. For example, like motherboards and pins and so forth, those have even less than these pure gold foils. So you can expect a yield that's much less than these. The trim circuit card fingers and the Pentium Pros have the highest yields of all the computer scrap in my experience. So that'll do it for this video. Thanks for watching.